Is that on Netflix? I'll check it out. No, thanks, see? Nixon and Elvis, I'll check it out. Okay, so anyway, yeah, this is, President Nixon. All right, now here he is in 1970 giving a public speech. I am against legalizing marijuana. Even if the commission does recommend that it be legalized, I will not follow that recommendation. Okay, not exactly open-minded. All right, it gets better. Nixon, 1971. I want a goddamn strong statement on marijuana. Can I get that out of this son of a bitching commission? I mean, one that just tears the ass out of them. You know, it's a funny thing. Every one of the bastards that are out for legalizing marijuana is Jewish. What the Christ is the matter with the Jews, Bob? What is the matter with them? By God, we are going to hit hit the marijuana thing, and I want to hit it right square in the puss. All right? This was and that's why I have quotes. You know, I didn't say this, please, don't shoot the messenger. Nixon recorded everything. He had an audio recording going in the Oval Office 24/7, and so this was one of such recordings. And he's speaking to Bob Ehrlichman. That's the Bob in that reference. Another Nixon aide, John D. Ehrlichman. All right, he was the White House Domestic Affairs Advisor, 69 to 73. Here's what he said. The Nixon campaign in 1968 and the Nixon White House after that had two enemies, the anti-war left and black people. We knew we couldn't make it illegal to be either against the war or black, but by getting the public to associate the hippies with marijuana and blacks with heroin, and then criminalizing both heavily, we could disrupt those communities. We could arrest their leaders, raid their homes, break up their meetings, and vilify them night after night on the evening news. Did we know we were lying about the drugs? Of course we did. All right, so that's Ehrlichman. That quote didn't appear until Harper's Magazine, April of 16. But again, you can see Ehrlichman was right there in the thick of it. In fact, Bob Ehrlichman and Bob Haldeman and Ehrlichman, they called them Nixon's Rottweilers. They both German Americans, and they were the guys. But yeah, so this is what's going on in the White House while the Schaefer Commission is doing its work. Okay, so the commission publishes its finding March 1972, and two primary conclusions: rejected the criminality theory, rejected the gateway drug theory. And of course, as we all know, marijuana was labeled Schedule 3, and we all lived happily ever after, right? No, that did not happen. So again, remember, 1914 El Paso, Texas, in through the 1930s, it's the criminality theory. We ban marijuana because it makes people engage in criminal behavior. Okay, then you get to the 50s, and the criminality theory falls out of favor, and it's the gateway drug theory. We criminalize marijuana because it's a gateway drug. Kids will be smoking weed today, and before you know it, they'll all be strung out on smack. Okay, well, the scientists looked at it, and don't forget, Nixon picked 9 out of the 13 scientists. And they came back and said, no, these theories don't hold up to scrutiny. They're junk science, and so therefore marijuana should not be Schedule 1. Well, yeah, that's what the cover of the report looks like. You can find it online. You can download a PDF if you want to read it sometime. But marijuana was classified as a Schedule 1 drug by the Nixon administration. And it's remained Schedule 1 ever since, and therefore it is a federal crime to use, possess, cultivate, distribute, etc., have anything to do with marijuana. And then there's the statutes in 21 U.S. Code, sections 841, 865. Those are the enforcement provisions of the Controlled Substances Act. So when the U.S. attorney files criminal charges against somebody for any illicit drug, those are the statutes that are invoked in those prosecutions. Okay, so, this 1970, starting in 96, the states start legalizing medical marijuana. And I'm just going to go through these quickly because we have a map that really illustrates it much better, I think. But yeah, so you can see from 96, California led the way. Most recently, in 2018, we have Oklahoma. Next year, we might add Michigan to the list for full rec. But then, speaking of full rec, and some of the activists get squirrely about this, they don't like to call it recreational, they like to call it adult use. I don't really see a difference, but you understand what we're saying. Recreational use, again, 2012, Colorado and Washington led the way, and we have a handful of states, plus the District of Columbia. So here's the map I was talking about, and you can see for yourself the dark colors are the states with full recreational use as well as medicinal. The light green ones are the states with medicinal only. And then what this map does not show is there are some states where cannabidiol is legal. And do you guys know what cannabidiol is? Really quickly, in the cannabis plant, there's something like 270 compounds called cannabinoids. And the most famous one is delta-9 THC. That's the stuff that gets you high, okay? There is another compound called cannabidiol. And there's a great deal of, at least anecdotal evidence, that cannabidiol can be very effective in treating epilepsy. In fact, GW Pharmaceuticals, it's a company, I believe they're in England. They have a drug called Epidiolex, which just got FDA approval. And as I understand that it's a synthetic form of cannabidiol. So cannabidiol is a form of medical marijuana, it just doesn't have any of the THC. So my point is, if you were to add cannabidiol legal states to this map, it would be a lot more. But that's a snapshot of where things are right now. Medicinal and both medicinal and recreational. So about 3 years ago, I decided to, my practice, for the lawyers, does anyone else here do administrative law? Crickets chirp, okay. I think I'm the only guy in Cleveland who does it. Most of them are in Columbus, but my practice was an administrative law practice. Okay, so I represented doctors who'd get in trouble with the medical board, or insurance agents who'd get in trouble with the Department of Insurance, that sort of thing. About 3 years ago, I decided to shift my practice to the cannabis industry. And this is the question that I asked myself. How can there be legal medical marijuana at the state level when marijuana is illegal federally? Because that seemed to me the fundamental question. And I came up with two answers. Okay, number one, it's complicated, which we will get to. And number two is this concept called marijuana federalism, which that's not original to me. I got that out of reason.com, which is a good libertarian website. They hate Republicans and Democrats. They're awesome. But yeah, this idea of marijuana federalism. And I like to ask this of lawyers. Can you think of anything else, of any precedent in U.S. history that's like this, where you have something that's illegal federally, and yet the states are basically in open rebellion and saying we're going to do it anyway? Even slavery doesn't quite work. As an example, I can't think of anything. Someone told me that lotteries used to be like that, but I really haven't seen much data on that. So maybe we're in a pretty close to an unprecedented situation in American law. But that's the idea of marijuana federalism.
Why can't that law be overclassed so hard?
Which one? Well, that's a really good question, because it's just a statute. All someone has to do is introduce a bill into the U.S. House or the U.S. Senate and get it through there, and then get it to the other side of the Capitol building and get it through there and get the president to sign it. What's been happening is I think there's a lot of money that opposes it. For example, there's a lot of research that shows that when states go medical marijuana, pharmaceutical sales drop. Okay, so big pharma opposes this. Also, the alcohol industry, beer, wine, whiskey, they oppose it because they want people getting drunk. They don't want people getting high. So there's a lot of moneyed interests that oppose this. And so, it's all about this, But no, that's a really good question. But technically, just introduce a bill and say, you know, marijuana shall henceforth be Schedule II. Done. But, you know, you have to tangle with Big Pharma and the alcohol industry. So back to federal law.